Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, sir, and a big thank you to Dr. Jyoti Dev, sir, and Sunita ma'am, Bhupika, and the entire team for such a fabulous conference yet again. It is indeed different at 12 years. And thank you, Zydus, for this talk here. So today, first of all, how many of you? Let's get a show of hands. How many of you use it personally or prescribe non-nutritive sweeteners? Nobody? Nobody uses them? Okay. Yes, I prescribe them too as required. Okay, so I think we really need to bust the myths in this room, right? So busting the myths around the non-nutritive sweeteners, and firstly, I think sugar a major source of caloric intake, but it's really overrated. We all know that. The sugar consumption in India is approximately 25 kilograms per person per year, and it's much more than the worldwide consumption per person that has been documented. And the 66th round of the NSSO 2009-2010 reported a 151% increase. Why am I telling you this? Because this is a huge problem. Sugar is everywhere, and we really need to curtail that consumption if we have to have some relief from the non-communicable diseases that are on the rise. So sugar, sucrose, glucose, fructose, all these are different forms of sugar itself. The most common nutritive sweeteners used in foods and beverages, which add literally 4 kilocalories per gram to all the foods that we consume. But again, adverse health outcomes, and this audience is very learned, I don't need to spend too much time here, except point out some different ones that you may not have come across. The gut dysbiosis and metabolic imbalances, again there's a lot of talk on gut dysbiosis, so this seems to alter that. The non-alcoholic fatty liver diseases due to fructose metabolism in liver, and then again conditions like gout, pancreatic cancer, kidney diseases, all these are related to increased sugar consumption besides the traditional non-communicable diseases that we always talk about. The WHO reports that free sugars intake increases overall energy intake, and that is the crux of the matter that leads to all the NCDs and even dental caries. So non-nutritive sugars or low-calorie sweeteners provide a safe option for reducing this sugar content and also the caloric intake without sacrificing on the taste, right? It's the taste that we all are addicted to. Thus, they are an alternative to cut down the actual sugar consumption. Non-nutritive sweeteners have had a beautiful journey of more than 100 years. The first one being discovered as saccharin in 1879, subsequently stevia 1931, then aspartame sulfame in the 1960s, sucralose in 1976, and neotame in 1992. Characteristics are all given here. I just want to say they are usually salts of organic acids, and the relative sweetness as compared to sucrose is also in the third column. Calories, focus on that it's almost zero or negligible, and that's the main advantage of the same. And the acceptable daily intake is also well calculated, and they are usually not metabolized or metabolized and excreted unchanged, etc., etc. Now we come to the myths versus the facts, and there are 3 main categories of myths which have really scared everyone, and that's why maybe such minimal use in this hall itself. And for that, to understand that, let's understand these 2 terms. It's NOELs and ADIs of NNS. NNS is nothing but non-nutritive sweeteners. NOEL is the no observed adverse effect level, and ADI is acceptable daily intake. And very quickly, let me tell you what it is. ADI is defined as an estimated amount of food additive expressed in per kilogram of body weight that can be ingested daily over a lifetime without appreciable risk to human health. Okay, so that is something that you are consuming every single day over a lifetime, and that should be okay. NOEL. What is no observed adverse effect level? It's the highest dietary level of NNSs that at which no adverse effects were seen in the animal studies. And how do we get ADI? By subtracting NOEL by 100. So it's 100th the dose of NOEL. Okay, it's that safe and low. Now the ADI for non-nutritive sweeteners for human consumption as per JECFA is steviol glycosides are 0 to 4 milligram of steviol equivalents per kg body weight per day. So you can just calculate this for a 70 kilogram average person and imagine the quantity that can be safely consumed every single day of his lifetime. Aspartame 40 milligrams per kg body weight per day and sucralose 5 milligram per kg body weight per day. So you just from this simple calculation, I don't need to even go further, but I'm going to give you all the evidence for that. The first myth is that they are associated with the risk of developing cancer. Well, the fact is 2014 the FDA reported that they are generally safe under certain conditions of use, and this was supported by the American Cancer Society in 2020 when they stated all NNSs appear to be safe and consumed in moderation. The fact, when you elaborate that, well, years ago NCI found from a review of at least 500,000 people that increased consumption of aspartame containing beverages was not associated with any leukemia, lymphoma or brain cancer. And similarly, a detailed analysis also showed us that sucralose is unlikely to be carcinogenic in humans. Again, systematic evaluation and integration of the mechanistic data, evaluating steviol glycosides, sucralose, aspartame and sucralose again, they overall found that there was no cause for concern as far as genotoxicity or carcinogenic activity was concerned. In fact, they were also found to be anti-inflammatory, antioxidant and anti-proliferative in nature. The next myth is that NNSs actually alter gut microbiota, and I told you gut dysbiosis is one of the contributing factors to all, whether it's diabetes, obesity and the rest. Latest expert consensus on them suggests that human studies are actually limited to giving us that adequate evidence that they influence gut health at doses which are relevant to human needs. So this is again a fact, and we need to understand that there is no evidence to make that claim. From the animal models, maybe it was suggested that NNSs alter the gut microbiota, but human studies in a recent one clearly reported that daily intake of pure sucralose or aspartame in doses reflective of typically high consumption had minimal effect on gut microbiota composition or even the short chain fatty acids production. And again, the data is right here, whether it's pre-sucralose or post-sucralose, pre-aspartame, post-aspartame. The Shannon Diversity Index, which reflects the richness of the gut microbiome and the evenness in the fecal samples, clearly show that there is no difference. And then again, in fact, the mean abundance, the mean relative abundance of the 4 most useful microbes in the human gut after aspartame or sucralose actually increased. So this was in favor of NNS use. Now coming to the third important one, that they are associated with chronic kidney disease. Obviously we don't want this because diabetes itself can cause chronic kidney disease. We don't want to augment that risk. But what is the fact? The National Kidney Foundation's guide, Planning for Emergencies, a guide for people with chronic kidney disease, recommends adding an artificial sweetener as part of an emergency diet plan. So the fact is that meta-analysis of RCTs, which are randomized controlled trials, which are the highest level of scientific evidence that we can generate, and the observational studies, they looked at the association of sugar with CKD and NNSs with CKD, and they found that in fact it's the sugar sweetened beverages that increase the risk by 1.64%, but no significant association was found between the NNS consumption and CKD. Now looking at the health outcomes of NNSs. Well, let's talk about weight reduction and maintenance, let's talk about the effect on glycemia and also how it could impact dental health. Overall, we've shown that they are beneficial in all these above conditions by actually reducing the amount of sugar consumed itself. So they may not have a direct effect, but the indirect effect is that when you use NNSs, you're going to use less of sugar or no sugar at all, and that is going to be extremely beneficial to you. So in weight management, while there are some observational studies that show that there is promotion of weight gain by increase in appetite or decreasing in satiety, and causing sweet cravings or even altering the taste and metabolic signaling, RCTs, the randomized controlled trials, the highest level of evidence, clearly show that weight loss and maintenance by reducing intake of sugar containing foods is what we see, and thereby reducing the net energy intake. So this is also clarified. Again, study 1 and 2, just two studies I am showing you here, which are both randomized controlled trials. One is in healthy individuals over 12 weeks with stevia, and they found that not only did it help weight maintenance, but there was a significant decrease in the total energy intake itself in the group taking stevia. The other one was with aspartame, 16 weeks, 163 obese women, and they found that the weight loss was similar in both the groups. However, a positive association between weight loss and aspartame consumption was seen. Now, what do the meta-analysis say? We know, right? Meta-analysis is taking all the evidence that we have together and then analyzing further. So that evaluated the effect of NNSs, which contained almost everything that's available on the market, on body weight, and reported the following results. Let's not look at epidemiological studies because they were highly inconsistent. The RCTs clearly showed us that there was no association between NNS intake and an increase in body weight or BMI. This is again the highest level of evidence. However, observational studies, prospective cohort studies and cross-sectional studies showed us a positive association between NNS intake and weight gain and increased BMI. Let's dwell into that further. How do we look at this? Well, we know excess sugar through the increased fat, especially around the liver and the pancreas, will increase the insulin resistance, the twin cycle theory and everything else. And we know that there's development of type 2 diabetes. However, what do NNSs do, and what is the meta-analysis of all the RCTs that tells us? That it's associated with no increase in fasting and postprandial glucose, HbA1c and insulin levels in subjects with or without diabetes. Now this is a considerably important finding which probably puts our mind to ease that yes, we can give it as an alternative to our patients today suffering from the same. Results of RCTs comparing the effect of NNS on glycemia. Again, 3 studies here, all are RCTs. The second study is a secondary analysis of a 6-month RCT. Again, they had patients either with type 2 diabetes, overweight and obese, or healthy males. And 8 weeks to 12 weeks duration where they compared stevia versus sucralose and then sucralose versus placebo. No effect on blood glucose, HbA1c, insulin and lipid levels with stevia. Again, similarly with sucralose. However, the secondary analysis showed us again that compared aspartame and sucrose, again found no effect on long-term glycemic control or on insulin sensitivity with aspartame. A meta-analysis. Now this is again looking at 29 trials with at least 750 participants. And what did we find? This also evaluated aspartame, saccharin, stereosides and sucralose. And overall they found that there was no increase in the blood glucose level compared to the baseline and gradual decrease. If you look at the graph on the right, you will see that gradual decline in blood glucose concentration over time was seen with the non-nutritive sweetener consumption, and there was no effect on the glycemic effect by the type of NNSs. I'm going to take 5 to 6 minutes extra because we have some time on discussion. How it impacts oral health or dental health? Let's look at it. Oral bacteria actually metabolize the sugars and they secrete acids that demineralize the enamel, right? With a lot of sugar consumption, that's our number one issue, especially in the pediatric population. And that is the crux for dental caries. But non-nutritive sweeteners are not metabolized to acids by these oral microorganisms, and therefore they can prevent caries. They also positively influence the microbial composition of the oral mucosa and further contribute to reduction in the risk of dental caries. I am sure any dentist in the audience would be quite happy with that, because again there are so many controversies with the fluoride itself. A systematic review has revealed that limiting free sugar intake to less than 10% of daily energy intake reduces the risk of dental caries throughout the life course. And again, in vitro studies have endorsed that aspartame, saccharin, sucralose all have antimicrobial properties against common periodontal pathogens. So this is the impact on weight, on glycemia and dental health. Now what is the current status? Now we are coming to the controversies. Across the world we have these 7 non-nutritive sweeteners approved. In India all of them are approved except cyclamate, and they are allowed as non-caloric sweeteners in some of the food product categories specified in the FSSR. Coming to aspartame, it was approved in the 1980s as a tabletop sweetener in different preparations. In 83, they further approved the use of aspartame in carbonated beverages and syrup bases, and 1996 FDA approved it as a general purpose sweetener. Coming to sucralose, first approval in 1998 across 15 countries. In 1999, FDA approved sucralose as a general purpose sweetener for foods under certain conditions of use. And today it's present in a variety of food products. Stereoglycosides, again these glycosides had approval from the FDA, and however the use of crude leaves and the crude extract is not considered generally safe and not permitted for use of sweeteners. The EFSA statements on aspartame, sucralose and stereoglycosides. I think we are coming to the matter right now. Aspartame was not of any safety concern up to doses of ADI, which is the acceptable daily intake of 40 milligrams per kg body weight per day. Steviol up to 4 milligram per kg per day, again not considered carcinogenic, genotoxic or with any reproductive or developmental toxicity. Importantly, sucralose. Consumption of foods and drinks containing sucralose instead of sugar may maintain tooth mineralization by decreasing the risk of demineralization. And a cause and effect relationship have also been established between the consumption of these beverages containing sucralose instead of sugar and reduction in the postprandial blood glucose responses. So all these are benefits. And then the EFSA statements on the use of NNS in special population, all of them have been considered safe, whether it's steviol glycosides or aspartame or sucralose, they have been considered as safe in young children and also pregnant women. Statements now, we obviously want to hear what the ADA has to say, the American Diabetes Association and the American Heart Association. The American Diabetes Association, the statement is so perfect. The use of NNS has the potential to reduce overall calories and carbohydrate intake if substituted for caloric sweeteners and without compensation by intake of additional calories from other food sources. And they highlight the benefits in those with diabetes. The AHA says when used judiciously, NNSs may facilitate reductions in added sugars and energy intake, help people achieve and maintain healthy body weight and lower the risk of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. So again, this is a good strategy endorsed by them. But what was it that caused all of us to really raise our eyebrows with concern was the WHO advisory that came and that said that not to use the NNSs for weight control in the newly released guideline, because the link observed in the evidence between NNSs and disease outcomes might be confounded by baseline characteristics of study participants and complicated patterns of NNS use. The recommendation was given as a conditional one and WHO was processing in the developing guidelines. But the signals that policy decisions based on this recommendation may require substantial discussion in the specific countries and again specific age groups. So we found...
Can you wind up the
Yeah, I'll wind up in a minute.
pressure from the organization because there's an inaugural function that was...
Sure. So randomized clinical trials have found that there's no change in the BMI and no other change in measures of adiposity or cardiometabolic health. In fact, they help in reducing energy intake, and prospective studies have shown that it might actually be associated with increased body weight and increased risk of type 2 diabetes, although the evidence is very, very low. And again, this discrepancy has been seen, and hence WHO says further research is needed to determine whether the observed associations are really genuine or a result of reverse causation or residual confounding. And this is actually the crux of the matter. Again, aspartame and cancer, this also has been clarified. Look at the box on the right. JECFA has completed a detailed risk assessment and concluded that the data evaluated indicated no sufficient reason to change the previously acceptable daily intake of 0 to 40 milligrams per kg body weight for aspartame. And that's my take-home message. Again, chromium is a great trace element found in natural sources as well as artificial, and because of its potential action on insulin mechanism and increasing insulin release, it can be very well combined with non-nutritive sweeteners to increase the benefits of the same. So again, just to highlight that use of non-nutritive sweeteners is an effective strategy to replace dietary sugars and reduce sugar as well as caloric intake, and all the myths I hope have been busted after this talk. And again, it can actually help us in weight control, diabetes management and prevention of tooth decay, and they are considered safe in the doses that are approved. Thank you very much again for a patient.
Thank you, Madam, for an extensive talk.